Hello, and welcome to my series of videos demonstrating how I make hybrid lines for bass fishing. This second video of the series will demonstrate how to splice solid leader into hollow core braid. It contains a few unique techniques and a few tips. The first video in this series provides an introduction. The third video demonstrates how to make connecting loops. Each of the videos has a list of materials at the end and in the comments. Thank you for watching. Okay, now I'm going to show you how to splice the fluorocarbon or monofilament into the hollow core braid. First, you want to come make a mark on the braid about 32 inches from the end. Doesn't have to be real precise, but this helps you control the overall length of the splice. Now you want to come about 6 to 8 inches up from the end of the line. I like to start with the loop splice needle just because it's easier to work with, and thread the needle into the center of the braid from the side. This can be the hardest part of the whole process. There we go. The reason to do this before you use the loop splice, the reverse latch, because the reverse latch can be difficult in that you can't back up. So if you can't make the reverse latch go through smoothly, you can hang up the needle inside the braid, and that usually results in a broken reverse latch. Okay, now we do the same with the reverse latch. Be sure that the latch end doesn't get into the braid while you're threading it through the line. Now you want to open the latch, grab the center of the line about a foot above, close the latch, and kind of kink the line back along itself. Oops. Now that you pull the loop through, set the reverse latch aside, put your fingers through the loop, now you can pull the rest of the line through the loop. There we go. Okay. This is the way you make a loop for doing loop-to-loop connections, but that's not really the reason we're doing it here. Then you grab the end of where the line overlaps and pull it back over the main line, which basically reverses the line over itself, turns the line inside out. Okay. Now when you grab the line above where it overlaps and pull the loop back out, you end up with the last few inches of line being reversed over itself. So that length of line is essentially the line turned inside out back over itself. Now we'll take the hollow needle, grab the fluorocarbon, and usually cutting a little angle on the end of the fluorocarbon makes the threading of the needle a little easier. Okay, slide it inside for about an inch, and then kink the fluorocarbon back over the edge of the needle every half inch or inch or so. The kinks along the fluorocarbon help it stay inside the needle when you're pulling it through the hollow core. So repeating the kinking process, push it all the way to the end of the needle so you don't accidentally pull it back out when you're threading it through the hollow core. Okay, now we're going to take the needle, start at the end of the overlap section here. And thread the needle through the hollow core. And then we're going to thread the needle all the way up to the mark we made, 32 inches up the line. Okay. Once you get up to your 32-inch mark, gently push the needle through the side wall of the line and carefully pull the fluorocarbon out. Now you can remove the needle, pull enough line through that you can tie a loose overhand knot beyond where you kinked the line inside the needle. You can cut off the kinked part, discard it. The reason you tie this loose knot is to keep you from accidentally pulling the line back through as you do the next steps. So now you're trying to smooth the line back toward the end gently. Being careful not to reverse the overlapped part at the end. Okay. So now you have the fluorocarbon threaded through the hollow core with the end of the hollow core doubled back on itself. Okay, now for the next steps of cleaning and gluing the joint. We'll take my little homemade clamp here. Load that so we've got control of the line and we can work with it more easily. So now we have about 2 inches of the overlapped hollow core and more than that on the side of the fluorocarbon that's exposed. Okay, so now we'll do a little cleaning. Take some IPA and a Q-tip. There we go. Clean the hollow core. And the fluorocarbon. Give that a minute to dry. Try to blot off as much of it as I can. Then leave the IPA to dry for a minute. Okay, while waiting for that to dry, the Solaris resin. This is the flexible version. Get that container open. Get a couple of finger cuts to protect my fingers. And by now the IPA should be about dry. And then take a Loctite 770 primer. Put the hollow core. And the fluorocarbon. And then give that a minute to dry as well. Okay. Now, while that's drying, some finger cuts onto my fingers. Now we'll apply resin. I've tried brushing this finer applicator tips. Fortunately, the best way to do it seems to be to get quantity onto your fingertip and just work it into the line. Okay. Once you've got the braid coated, apply a little bit of fluorocarbon as well. Okay, now you'll understand at this step why we went to the trouble to reverse the hollow core. Now I can turn the hollow core back over fluorocarbon, and I end up with adhesive between the hollow core and the fluorocarbon, but with a perfectly smooth joint. And I can remove any excess from just beyond hollow core and try to smooth that transition as much as you can. There we go. Okay. Now I can remove the finger cuts, find some eye protection, and then cure the adhesive with the UV light. When I first tried this, I wasn't sure how well the UV would cure the adhesive inside the hollow core. But it turns out it works very well. I usually run it back and forth from about 3 directions to try to be sure I've got everything cured. Okay. And now you have a cured adhesive all along the line, and you've got a nearly perfectly smooth splice. Okay. The only downside of the flexible adhesive is it leaves a slightly tacky surface on the outside. Eventually, going through the water, that will clear up. However, in the meantime, it's annoying to have to handle it. So while I still have it in the clamp, I like to take a little graphite and smooth the graphite along the line with the adhesive to remove the tackiness. Okay. After half a dozen casts or so, the graphite will wash off, but by then the sticky will be washed off as well. Now we'll take it out of the clamp and I'll show you the final product. So you now have a splice of the fluorocarbon into the hollow core braid where the transition between the two is pretty much perfectly smooth. The line is still almost as flexible as the fluorocarbon alone. And when you wind that onto the reel and then subsequently cast it, you won't even notice the splice going out under your thumb when you cast. Okay, so that's the idea. So the final step is to smooth the main line back over back over the fluorocarbon where it is currently coming out of the side. So what you're trying to do is estimate where to cut it such that when you smooth it, it ends up back inside the hollow core. So I usually smooth it all out. And once I've got it smooth, and I pull out about 2 or 3 inches, cut it off a couple of inches. So now I know it'll go back inside when I smooth it out. But before smoothing it out, take about the last 4 to 6 inches of the line and a piece of sandpaper. This is 220 grit. And what you want to do is sand a taper onto the last 4 to 6 inches of the line. If you don't taper the end of the fluorocarbon before you pull it back inside, it will wear a little hole in the side of the hollow core when casting the line hits through the end of the guides. So you're trying to sand enough taper on the end so that the end is more limp than the fluorocarbon. So there now I've sanded this such that the end is probably no more than half as thick as the full diameter of the line. But now when it transitions to the guide, it'll go through smoothly and won't wear a hole in the hollow core. So now, since we cut it short, when we smooth it back out, it completely disappears inside the line. And now if you slide it over your finger, you can't hardly tell where you're picking up fluorocarbon. And that protects that end of the joint from getting damaged during casting. So that's the completed joint. And you ended up with a total joint where you've still got more than 2 feet of fluorocarbon inside the hollow core. Okay, that's it.